Of Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, the first line right at the top of the Amud. Amru lo soyer sheshlachta kaidamatan dama shel par. If the kohen, if he shechted the soyer, the goat, before applying the dam of the par, the order that he's supposed to do it is he shechts the par, he takes the dam of the par and he's mazeh in the kodesh kadoshim. After that, he shechts the dam of the soyer, and he's mekabel the dam, and he does the sprinkling, the hazos of the soyer and the kodesh kadoshim. If the soyer, he shechted it before applying the dam of the soyer, the dam of the par, he did that out of order, lo yasav lo klum. It's not valid, and therefore he has to take another soyer and shecht it and do the hazos. Tanan, but we learned in the Mishnah, Hiktim dam hasor l'dam par. It says that if he did the hazos of the dam of the sar before the dam of the par, yachser v'yaza midam hasar acher dam par, then he has to repeat it. He has to yachser v'yaza midam hasar after the dam of par. He has to do it over again. The hazos that he did with the sar before the par are not valid, it's out of order, and he has to repeat it after doing the hazos of the par. Now, v'im yisa, that if it's so that you say that the shechting is not valid, yachser v'yishchel miboile, it's not only that he has to repeat the hazos, he has to shecht another soyer. He has to bring another soyer and shecht another soyer. He interprets it to mean what we're talking about over here are the matanos shebehechal, meaning in the kodesh kadoshim he did it in the proper order. He shechted the par and he did the hazos of the par, then he shechted the soyer, he did the hazos of the soyer and the kodesh kadoshim. But in the heichal, instead of doing first the hazos of the par, he did the hazos of the soyer. So over there we say he has to, the shlit of the soyer was done properly. It was done after the hazos of the par. So the shlit is done properly, but it's the hazos and the heichal that are not proper, so therefore he has to repeat the hazos of the soyer in the heichal. V'chein amar Rabbi Afas b'matanos shebeheichal is referring to the matanos of the heichal. So therefore we must say that we're going in this Mishnah according to the opinion of Rabbi Nechemiah that the order is makiv in the heichal, because according to Rabbi Yehuda the order is not makiv, and therefore he would not have to repeat it. And so too on the hazos that are done on the heichal and then on the mizbeach, that they are all considered to be independent areas. Ton Rabbana, the keeper as Mikdash HaKodesh. It says in the pasuk, the keeper as Mikdash HaKodesh is Mechaper as Mikdash HaKodesh. So the pasuk says, the keeper as Mikdash HaKodesh, that's oil moed, that's HaMizbeach Yechaper, Val HaKohenim HaKol Am HaKol Yechaper. So we darshan as follows. It says, the keeper as Mikdash HaKodesh, that is the area in the Kodesh Kadosh. Oil moed, and it says the oil moed is the heichal. That's referring to the heichal. Mizbeach k'mashmo yechaper elo azoros. These are the azoros. So therefore, it's machaper. The korban is machaper for any case of any instance of tumah that might have occurred, whether it's in lifnai or lifnim. So what does that mean? That means either if the person was tomei and went into the kodesh kadashim, or if he became tomei inside the kodesh kadashim and he paused, he delayed there the amount of time that it takes to be mishtach, to bow down. And similarly in the oil moed, if he went into the oil moed where he was tomei, or he delayed, he paused over there, or in the Azoras, now it says in the plural Azoras, Tais Hashanim says because there's a different Kedusha in the area of the Azora that is east of the Mizbeach, or in the area between the Mizbeach and the Kodesh Kodashim. And it says the Mizbeach. And in all of those areas, then there's a kapara for any tumah that the person was tomei in that area, or he delayed the amount of time that it takes to mishtach. But the Mefarshim are bothered by what does it mean by the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is either in the oil moed or it's in the Azor. What is the difference in the Mizbeach? What does it mean to imply by the Mizbeach? Why is that mentioned separately? The Taisus Shonim says that it's mentioned separately because it has a different level of kedusha, but there's really no nafkamina. It's just mentioned separately because it has a different level of kedusha. So therefore, it's not included in the area of the Azora. It's mentioned separately because it is a different level of kedusha. Taisus learns as mashma that he had that Girsa in Rashi, that it's referring to in a case by the Mizbeach that even if the Kohen was not shoy Kadesh Tachva, even if he did not delay the amount to bow down, where if it would have been in the Azores or in the Ol Moed, then there would be no chiyuv in such a case. However, if he does the avodah on the Mizbeach when he's Tomei, then he needs the kapara, even if it was less than the amount of time that it takes to be mishtachva. So that's why the Mizbeach is mentioned separately. So in all these cases, there is a kapara. Now we'll see which korban is mechaper. Kahanim, and it says the kahan kimashmon. That's referring to the kahanim. Amakol, that's Elo Yisrael. That's referring to the Yisrael who are not Kohanim, not Levim. Yechaper, it says a chaper again, Elu Alavim. It's referring to Levim. So who should kulam mechapara achas? They're all equated, that there's one kapara that's mechaper for all of them. Shekulam mischaperim besoyer hamishtalech b'shar averos. They all have a kapara with the Sora Mishtaleach b'shar averos, the Rav Yehuda. So now it says that all of these different segments, the Kahanim, the Yisrael, the Levim, Yechaper, they all have one kapar. Now, it can't be referring to, for the Aver of Tumas Mikdash v'Kadoshav, it can't be referring to that Tumah because over there is a difference. Over there, the Kahanim have the kapar with the par, and the Yisrael have it with the Soyer Lashem, the Soyer that's Nasa B'fnim. So the kapar over there is different. So it can't be referring to the case that Aver of Tumas Mikdash Kadoshav, and must be in Shar Averes. Yisraelim have a kapar and the Sarah Mishtaleach. So Rabbi Yehuda learns that also the Kahanim and Levim have a kapar for Shar Averes and the Sarah Mishtaleach. Their special kapara with the par, that the kapara for Tumas Mikdash V'Kadoshav. But the kapara for Shar Averes, that's with the Sarah Mishtaleach. That's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Omer says no. Geshem shadam asoyer anase bifnim mechaper al Yisrael betumas mikdash v'kadoshav. Just like the dam, the blood of the Sora anase bifnim, the Sora Lashem is mechaper for Yisrael for the Avera of Tumas Mikdash v'Kadoshav. Kach dam apar mechaper al Kohanim betumas mikdash v'Kadoshav. So the dam of the par is mechaper for the Kahanim for that Avera. And just like the vidui of the Sora Mishtaleach is mechaper for Yisrael for Shar Averes, kach vidui shel par mechaper al Kohanim b'Shar Averes. The vidui of the par is mechaper for Kohanim b'Shar Averes. So just like we see that the vidui of the Sor is mechaper, the Sor Mishtaleach is mechaper for Yisrael, the vidui of the par is a mechaper for the Kahanim. So the Kahanim have a kapar v'tumas mikdash v'kadosha with the dama par, just like the Yisraelim have a kapara for tumas mikdash v'kadosha with the dam of the Sor Nasam B'fnim, and just like Yisrael have a kapara for Shar Averes with the vidui of the Sor Mishtaleach, the Kahanim have a kapara with the vidui of the par for the Shar Averos. Ton Rabbanon v'chila mechaper es a kodesh. The pasuk says v'chila mechaper es a kodesh. Is mechaper the kila v'mechaper es a kodesh. The pasuk says v'chila mechaper es a kodesh v'sal moed v'sam mizbeach. So he finishes being mechaper. So it says kodesh zalif na'ilufnim. It says the kodesh, that's referring to the area of lefnai v'lefnim. Oil moyed zahich mizbeach kamashmo. So these are three distinct areas. So the three separate areas. Melamed shekulam kapara b'fnei atzma, to teach you that each one of these areas are a kapara b'fnei atzma. they're a separate kapara, and that on their own, they're separate, distinct areas. So we'll see what that implies in a moment. We'll see what that means. Mikan Amru, Nosan mixes matonish bifnim nishbech adam. So from here you learn out that if he did some of the hazos, he did it in the Kodesh Kadoshim, and then the rest of the blood spilled out. So he did not complete that segment, that Seder of the Kodesh Kadoshim. Yavi dam acher. He has to bring a dam acher, which we don't know why yet, what the source is. We'll see in a minute. But Yavi dam acher v'yaschel b'tchilu matonish bifnim. He has to start all over again by the matonas shebis bifnim. But Rabbi Elazar, Rav Shimon Aimrim, ain't a maschel el mokum shepasek. But they argue and they say no, you don't have to start from the beginning. You just continue from where you left off. So we'll see shortly what the basis of that machlekes is. However, Gomer as a matonas shebifnim v'nishbach adam. If he finished the matonas in the kodesh kadoshim and the blood spilled, Yomi Damacher, he brings other blood. V'yaschel b'tchila b'matonas shebehechal. Now here he only has to start in the Metchila Matonash Beichel. He doesn't have to repeat it, because that's what was mentioned before when we said Vechila Mechaper as a Kaidesh Zelifnaim Lifnaim or Elmoid Zehechel Mizbeach Mashmo. They're all considered to be separate, independent sections. So once he's completed one section, that's done. He moves on to the next section. If the blood spills out afterwards, he does not have to go from the beginning of the previous section, only from this section. So therefore, Yavi Adam Hacher v'Yaschel b'tchila matonish behechel. Nasan mixes matonish behechel v'nishbach adam. If he did some of the hazos in the hechel and the blood spilled out, Yavi Adam Hacher v'Yaschel b'tchila behechel. He doesn't have to start from the Kodesh Kadoshim, only from the hechel. So therefore, each segment, according to the Tanakama, if he spilled within a section, you can't just continue from where you left off. You have to start from the beginning, but that's only in that section. Once you've completed one section, that's done. You don't have to start, if the blood spilled out subsequently, you don't have to start from the beginning of the previous section. But in any event, Rabbi Elazar, Rav Shimon Aimrim, eino maschel el mokum shepasek. They hold that no, you only have to continue from where you left off. If you finish the matanas hechal and the blood spilled, Yomi Damacher, the yaschel b'tchila matanas hamizbeach. And then, since you gomar, that segment is finished, you start with the mizbeach. Nasan mixas matanas mizbeach v'nishbach adam. If you started some of the hazos in the mizbeach and the blood spilled, Yomi Damacher, you have to bring other dam. You can't just continue from where you left off. But you don't have to go to the Heichal or the Kodesh Kadoshim v'yaschel b'tchila matanas hamizbeach. But he also, Rabbi Elazar, Rav Shimon Aimrim mimakom shepasach hu maschil. You just continue from where you left off. If he finished the hazos on his back and then the blood spilled out, everyone agrees that the pouring of the shiroim on the Yisod HaMizbeach, that is not ma'akev. They both, this machlokes, do you start from the beginning or do you continue from where you left off, is based on the Rosh of the following pasuk. It says, Midam chatas hakipurim achas b'shana. The pasuk says that he's mechaper midam kipurim achas b'shana. It says that v'chiper Aaron al karnoisav achas b'shana midam chatas hakipurim achas b'shana yichaper alav l'darisechem kodesh kadoshim ula Hashem. So it says achas b'shana. It says once a year. So it stresses in the pasuk that it's once a year. So Rabbi Meir, was a Tanakama holds chatas achas amarti loch v'lo shtei chatas. When it says midam chatas hakipurim achas b'shana, it's referring to the chatas achas, not only that Yom Kippur is achas b'shana, but the chatas achas. You are only allowed to do the hazos from one chatas. So therefore, if the blood spilled in the middle, you can't bring another chatas and continue from where you left off, because that would be two chatas. You have to, the first ones are nullified. You have to bring a chatas, start from the beginning, where all the hazos are from that one chatas. V'lo shtei chatos. It's chatas achas amarti l'cho v'lo shtei chatos. But Rabbi Elazar of Shimon Savei chitui echad amarti l'cho v'lo shnei chituim. It's applications. It's not referring to the chatas, the korban. It's chitui achas, the sprinklings. You do one sprinkling and not two, meaning you don't repeat it it, because then you do sprinkling and sprinkling again. You continue from where you left off, so that you're not repeating the hazos. It's chituyachas, one sprinkling and not two. Tanya, Amar Rebbe Lichilek Rabbi Yaakov Belugin. He says that this is a machlekes by the dam of the Yom Kippurim, the par on the soil. However, as far as the shemen for the Metzora, it's different. They don't argue. They both agree in that case that if the oil spilled, you have to start from the beginning. That even though they had a machlekes over here, but his chilek, he differentiated between the case of Yom Kippur and the case of the Metzora. Now, in the case of the Metzora with the oil, the kohen dips his finger into the oil that's in the palm of another kohen, and he does sprinkling sheva hazos keneged the pareiches. There's a machlekes rishonim where he stands. There's two Lashonis and Rashi, and there's Taisus and Taisus Yishonim. They're machulek. There, does he stand in the Azora and he faces the Pareichs and he does the Shev Hazois, or is he in Shar Nikonar, which is in Shar Nikonar, which is where the Metzora is, and from there he does the Hazos. The Bryce over here is mashma that he's in the Azora, but the Taisus Yishonim says Lavdavke, he's actually in Shar Nikonar. But he does the hazos and the pareichas, then he applies it to the Metzora's right ear and right thumb and right toe, and the balance of the oil is poured on the Metzora's head. Now, we have theoretically the same type of machlekes over there, that if there is the oil spilled out in any one of these segments, do you continue from where you left off, or do you start from the beginning? So over here, Rabbi said that Li Chilek Rabbi Yaakov, that even though we have this machlekes over here by Yom Kippur, do you repeat it or continue from where you left off? But by the shemen, everyone agrees you start from the beginning. In fact, more of a loy, do they not argue? Vantanya, it says Nasan mixes matonis bifnim v'nishbach halug, if he made some of the matonas bifnim. So this is mashma, as we said, that the hazos keneged the pareichas are in the azor. And then if the oil spilled out after that, he has to bring another lug. He has to repeat and start all over again from the Matanas Behechel. They say that no, you only continue from where you left off. And it continues. If he finishes those hazois and then it's spilled out, the matanis b'hainas on the thumb is considered to be a separate segment. So that's considered to be a separate segment, and therefore you don't have to start from the beginning. So if he starts, it's spilled out. Yaschel b'tchil matanis b'hainas, Nasan mixes matanis b'hainas v'nishbach adam. If he did some of that and then it spilled out, Yavi logacher v'yaschel b'tchil matanis b'hainas. He starts from the beginning of that segment. But Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, but they say from where he left off, he continues from where he left off. So you see that they're machulik, they argue even in the case of the Metzora. Now the Bryce continues, if he finishes the Matanis Halug spilled out, everyone agrees that the remainder of the oil that's poured on the head, on the Metzora's head, that's not ma'akev. But anyway, I'll call upon him. We do see that they argue even by Metzora. Ema, the Gemara says, that reinterprets what was said. Li Shana Rabbi Yaakov Belukim, not Li Chileg, but Li Shana. Over here, he taught me that the machlekes that we had by Yom Kippur also applies by Metzora, applies by Metzora as well. So therefore, he says that it is the same machlekes. The Ritva says it doesn't mean that we're changing the lashon. We're reinterpreting what chilek means. Chilek means what you said before was differentiated, and now we're saying what it means is that he applied this chilek, this machlekes that they argue by Yom Kippur, it applies to Metzora as well. Omar Matnas Haroish in Ma'akva. So we said at the end of the previous brisa that, however, the pouring of the oil on the Metzora's head, everyone agrees, is not ma'akiv. My time, and it says the remainder of the oil is poured on his head. Well, it also says by the mincha noiseres. Are you going to say that if the remainder of the mincha that's left over after the kmitza, if it's lost, if it's gone, it's not ma'akiv? But we know it's not true. If he did the kmitza, the kohen was kohenes, and therefore, and he has a remainder, and prior to burning to be maktir the kohenes on the mizbeach, the shiroim are gone, you can't be maktir the kohenes, so you see it is ma'akiv. So it can't be simply because it says hanoiser. The Gemara answers shiny hasam by masor. It's different. Umiyeser v'hanoiser. It says umiyeser, and it also says min noiser. The pasuk says hanoiser min Hashem and Ashal Kappa Kain Yitan al Rosh Matayar, and then it says umiyeser Hashem and Ashal Kappa Yitan al Tanoch Haizen, and it says al Vayin Raiva v'al Dam Hashem. So it says Yeser Hashem, and it says that it applies to the thumbs, to the earlobe and the thumbs and the toe, and then it says Noiser, the remainder of the remainder, it says is poured on his head. So it's not just a remainder; it's a remainder that teaches you that it's not ma'akiv.